Most people who plan a move to Colorado think they're choosing a location, but what most people don't realize until after they move is that living north of Denver is actually a lifestyle decision, not a map decision. On a map, places like Fort Collins, Windsor, Loveland, and Greeley look close to Denver, but in real life, the way you live in northern Colorado is very different than you might expect. For some people, that difference becomes the reason they stay here long term, and for others, it's something they wish they had understood before they moved. Hey, what's going on? I'm Brian McKinnon with Move Me to Colorado at Real. I live and work right here in northern Colorado, and my team and I help people from all over the country relocate to this area. But more importantly, this channel is about helping you understand what living here is actually like so you can decide if this is the right fit for you. Today, I want to talk you through the things that don't usually show up in your online research, but have a huge impact on how living north of Denver here in northern Colorado actually is day to day. And once you start to understand that this is a lifestyle shift, the first thing that usually changes is how you think about Denver itself. And one of the biggest surprises for people who move north of Denver is how little Denver ends up being part of their daily life. Yes, Denver is there. Yes, you can go there, but most people who live here in northern Colorado are not commuting into the city every day. They're also not building their routines around it. Trips into Denver become planned. They're more intentional, and over time, Denver starts to feel less like your home base and more like a place you visit. I see this a lot with people relocating from larger cities, especially if you're coming here from out of state. They like knowing Denver is accessible, but they don't expect how quickly their lives become centered here locally instead. For some people, that change feels limiting, and for others, it's exactly what makes life feel calmer and more sustainable. Once a big city stops being the center of your life, the next thing people notice is how different the pace of everyday life here feels. Now, quick check-in for you. When you picture where you want to live, do you lean more towards a larger metro area, or do you prefer more of a suburban life a little farther away from a big city? Let me know in the comments directly below this video. One thing people don't fully anticipate is how quiet everyday life can be here, even when life is full. Northern Colorado doesn't have the same constant background noise or urgency that you get in larger cities. Errands feel calmer and less crowded. Neighborhoods feel quieter. Even busy weeks tend to feel less stressful. For a lot of people coming from high-pressure, fast-paced environments, this feels like relief. But this part matters. If you need constant activity, stimulation, or energy around you to feel engaged, this area can feel too quiet at first. That doesn't make it bad. It just means that pace matters more than you might expect when choosing where to live, because that slower pace doesn't just change how your days feel, it also changes how your days are structured. Typically, one big adjustment for a lot of people is how spread out northern Colorado really is. Even though the towns themselves aren't massive in size, neighborhoods, schools, shopping, and work are usually separated. Driving is simply part of daily life here. The trade-off is less congestion and less stressful traffic, but more planning. You're actually covering more ground just without constant frustration. Now, some people love that balance. Others again realize that they prefer more denser, walkable environments more than they thought. This isn't something you notice on Zillow, but it becomes very obvious once you're actually living it. If this breakdown has been helpful so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I share what it's really like living here in northern Colorado, the good, the trade-offs, and what you need to know so you can make better relocation decisions. You might assume that moving north of Denver and living in northern Colorado means a big, massive drop in your cost of living. Compared to Denver or Boulder, housing is more affordable, especially when it comes to space, the size of the home, and neighborhood feel. But northern Colorado is not inexpensive either. What may surprise you is how quickly the full picture comes into focus once you factor factor in utilities, property taxes, metro districts, insurance, and even HOA fees. This is not a bargain area, it's a value-based area. You're paying for livability, space, lifestyle, convenience, and long-term comfort, not short-term savings. Another thing that surprises people after they move north of Denver here in northern Colorado has nothing to do with housing or geography. You usually have to build community more intentionally here. People are friendly, they're welcoming, but they're also not intrusive. You don't just stumble into social circles the way you sometimes do in larger cities. Most relationships here happen through routines. Schools, kids' activities, work, gyms, churches, outdoor groups. For families, this often happens pretty naturally over time. For people relocating without built-in connections, it can take a little more intention. For some people, that feels grounding and meaningful. For others, it can feel isolating at first. Knowing that ahead of time makes a big difference in how quickly this area will start to truly feel like home for you. Now, there's one last part of living north of Denver that most people don't fully realize until they have been here for a while. When you move here, life starts to become more self-contained. Your routines become local. Your weekends become simpler. Your role gets a little smaller, but often in a good way. For many people, this creates stability. For others, it creates restlessness until they adapt. And that difference isn't really about the city, it's about how you personally respond to a quieter pace, more space, and fewer constant options. Understanding that before you move is one of the biggest differences between loving life here and always feeling like something is missing somewhere else. So if you are thinking about making a move to Colorado and want help thinking it through, my team and I would be happy to help. You can reach us by clicking the link in the pinned comment directly below this video. And if you want to keep learning what you need to know before making a move to Colorado, make sure you watch this video next.